Hey, ladies and gentlemen, so yesterday's video actually popped off more than I expected it to, and a lot of people reached out to me saying things like, I really like the way you described Alliance Conquest, you were really honest about it, the things you said about World Boss, etc. So I thought I would follow it up with a video that I've thought about doing for a while, but it didn't seem that interesting at the time. So hopefully it's interesting now, but hear me out. So recently we've been getting a lot of tier 4s, right? No shock there, but we've been getting 3 per update rather than 2. But in addition to that, recently we've been getting a lot of these type of tier 4s. The native tier 2, tier 4 variety. Now sure, we've gotten some non-native tier 2, tier 4s recently, like Cyclops, like Mystique. But, Silver Surfer is the latest in a long list of native tier 2, tier 4s that we've gotten to add to the list of already long native tier 2s that have tier 4. So I decided, looking at that, I was like, let me go in reverse. How many native tier 2s are left that could go to tier 4? Now, in order to do this as efficiently as possible, I also included all of the native tier 3s that could go to tier 4 because at this point, I don't really see a big difference. Maybe some of you guys do see a big difference, but for example, right, people are hoping for, let's say, Apocalypse to get his tier 4, but people are also hoping for Sentry to get his tier 4. And my take is, and probably the take of a lot of players, but I could be wrong, is that there's not really a big difference between these characters anymore. Maybe when they first came out, like maybe people would be upset if, for example, Kang got his tier 4 ahead of Doctor Doom, since Doctor Doom has been waiting so much longer and he's been in the game so much longer. Like, I can understand that. But otherwise, it's just like, it doesn't really matter. Like, if Dormammu gets his tier 4 or Null gets his tier 4, I don't think people really care if it's native tier 2 or native tier 3. So I bundled them all up together. And the short answer is very quick. There's 21. That's what you want to know. There you go. Boom. You can stop watching the video. There are 21 native tier 2, tier 4, native tier 2s left that could be taken to tier 4. And I'm going to quickly rattle them all off right now. Black Dwarf, Corvus Glaive, Supergiant, Mr. Fantastic, Deadpool, Havoc, Apocalypse, Strife, Silver Surfer. Oh, we just got Silver Surfer, so it's actually 20. Scarlet Witch, Proxima Midnight, that's 10. Molecule Man, Dormammu, Doctor Doom, Quicksilver, Ebony Maw, Sentry, Cult, Null, Kang, Gore, Mephisto. So there. I counted with my hands so you know that it's 20. It was 21. I wrote this down just before Silver Surfer got his tier 4 and I didn't update it. But basically there's 20 left. Now that seems like a lot of characters, right? We have 266 characters. I don't know exactly how many are tier 4, but what, like 40 or something like that? But the fact there's only 20 left is not that many. It's genuinely not that many compared to all the characters that could get tier 4. And the other thing I want to point out is that with Gladiator getting a tier 3 and a tier 4 in the same update, now it's open season. So they could do this. They could do that to anybody, right? They could drop a an Empire with a Y update, and they could give Hulkling and Wiccan back-to-back tier 3, tier 4s. But that being said, I still feel like, especially considering what we've seen lately with Madeline, with Silver Surfer, with Gladiator, with Beta Ray Bill, like they just hit us almost with 4 native tier 4s back-to-back. I feel like they're still going to target native tier 4, native tier 2s, excuse me. I'm calling them native tier 4s, but you know what I'm saying here. The native tier 2, tier 4s. So that got me thinking. I was like, you know what? Who could they realistically target next? I mean, obviously they could target anyone, but who makes the most sense, right? Next year, for example, we know that there's going to be a Fantastic Four movie. I think it's very, very, very likely that they're going to, whatever plans they have, they're going to try and align them so that they drop a tier 4 Mr. Fantastic and a tier 4 Doctor Doom for the movie. I don't actually even know if Doctor Doom is the villain of that movie with Pedro Pascal and Vanessa Kirby and stuff, but you could totally see that going there. Aside from that, though, right, we're probably expecting Deadpool to get his tier 4 for the Deadpool movie, but of course Wolverine already has it, so that's the only character there. Maybe they're going to do Apocalypse, or they'll do some other kind of mutant. We know that Sentry was number 1 on that bizarre list that came out where it was like 15 characters that everybody wants updated, and had a bunch of like weird characters on the list that no one votes for, like War Machine. But besides those sort of more obvious ones, what about everybody else? Like, are they going to finally hit up Molecule Man? Like, I think it's very reasonable to expect, I wouldn't say expect, but it's very reasonable to be in some sort of anticipation for the Epic Quest, especially the older Epic Quest characters to get a tier 4. So I would maybe bet money that Molecule Man gets a tier 4 this year, because they look at all the recent Epic Quest characters they've been banging off with the tier 4s, And of course, we know Deadpool's another epic quest that's going to get one. We just talked about Mr. Fantastic. There's just not that many left. And Molecule Man's certainly one of them, right? Havoc just came out, so we kind of put him off the list. But other than that, I actually think, and this is what relates to yesterday's video that got me thinking, what if when they do finally do something about World Boss Ultimate, because we know that this is kind of an eyesore in the game right now, and it's literally just a stepping stone for new players, and then they completely forget about it. And gone are the days where, like, if you look at a player who's only been playing for like 2 years, 3 years or less, they're not going to be at 100 on all these bosses. You see I'm at 100, 100. Okay, not him. 100, right? You see I'm at 100? That's not going to happen anymore, right? Because the only reason why I'm even close to 100 on any of these bosses or at 100 is because World Boss Legend didn't exist. And now because we know it does exist, there's no point, right? It's much more valuable to get these to 100 or go beyond 100, right? Because we know the rewards replicate from 100 to 200. So what if when they, do something about this World Boss thing, they tier 4 these characters, right? So I don't know if that equates them coming out this year, but I wouldn't be surprised, right? I wouldn't be surprised if they decide, you know what, we're going to do some upgrades to the existing World Boss content. We're going to make like legend modes for Proxima, for Corvus first, and then later on, like for Scarlet Witch, for Quicksilver, for Apocalypse. And with each one of those, they're going to drop a tier 4. Now, the thing that sort of negates what I'm saying or that contradicts what I'm saying is Cable. Right? I'm fully aware that Cable has a tier 4, and he's also a world boss, and they didn't do anything for him. So that's kind of awkward, for sure. But I don't know. Cable is sort of, seems like the exemption to the rule. The exception to the rule, rather than the rule itself. But I could be wrong about this. But that's kind of where I'm leaning my speculation towards. I could see them tier 4ing one of the native tier 2s, one of the native tier 3s. But it's probably going to be Null or Sentry or Mephisto, let's be honest, because they're so old, and they want to bring those characters back into the fold. I would put no money on Gore or Kang for sure, but I could certainly see the Black Order getting tier 4s. Even someone like crotchety like Ebony Maw or these clowns down here. I mean, Black Dwarf is probably like the least likely, but it's still possible. Supergiant was super popular back in the day. Super popular character back in the day. You know, I could totally see them trying to bring her back. And you also have to think about their typings, right? This is the other thing. They want to be competitive with the typings. Right now, Jean is the best universal female villain, and Hela wasn't able to really dethrone her. If they want to give, especially ABX and ABL players, something more, I know Jean scores really high, but if they pressure enough, ABX, ABL players to force Jean fully PvP, then they're going to need to fill the gap with someone like a Supergiant. And that makes sense. And it makes even more sense when you go and you look at what this list looks like. It's empty. It's empty. And look at the list, right? 2 out of 6, right? 33% of this list is Black Order characters. So from this perspective, it's like, oh shit, they might tier 4 Proxima or Supergiant this year. And if they're going to tier 4 Supergiant or Proxima this year, then they're going to create a Black Order update, right? It just kind of makes sense. I mean, they could do something else. They could do like a woman update, or I don't know. They could do some other kind of shit. But you sort of get what I'm saying, that it sounds more likely than less likely, right? Obviously, Thanos is not going to get anything because of the Farmer Thanos uniform and how sticky they want these seasonals to last. But aside from that, I don't know. Yeah, I feel like a native tier 2, tier 4, I feel like they're going to keep coming out with them. And then I also feel like we're sort of due for a native tier 3 to finally get a tier 4. And I think Mephisto and Sentry probably have the most looks from the comics that they can draw on. I know Gore has a lot of looks, but again, he's too new. Him and Kang are just too new to get tier 4s already. So that's why I think it's going to be either Sentry, Null, or Mephisto. And then the only ones that I think are definitely not going to get it soon are like obviously Havoc, Mr. Fantastic, Dr. Doom are not going to. Probably not Strife either, because he got a uniform recently, like in the last 6 months, so they're probably not going to give him a tier 4. But basically everybody else, even like Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, Apocalypse, I think they're all fair game. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we got them all tier 4 this year. And especially, I know this is going to sound really bad, but especially with this new system, which I still have not taken advantage of. I know this is going to sound really cynical, and I've tried not to sound cynical, like too cynical in my videos lately, but I've also tried to sound realistic. Wouldn't it kind of make sense that they drop this system, right, which only applies to native tier 1 characters, and then they just focus on dropping native tier 2 and native tier 3 tier 4s so that this system doesn't give you more value. It's a pretty dark, cynical thing to do. But then again, look at look at the 3 characters that they dropped tier 4 since this system came out. Gladiator, Beta Ray Bill, Silver Surfer. We will see who comes next, right? We will see who comes next because we're going to be getting sneak peeks not too long, so we'll be able to see, right, with this next pre-release token. And then of course there's going to be a tier 4 with the mischief token, with the April Fools, right? Last year it was Thanos tier 4. This year, who knows, right? Whoever it's going to be, we'll see if they're native tier 2 or they're native tier 1 and they get tier 4. But yeah, I'm really curious to hear what you guys think. Have you been thinking about native tier 2s getting tier 4? They're obviously more expensive, and so despite this discount being very attractive, I'm almost of the mindset, especially since we don't know what that new game mode is, that new tier 4 only game mode is, I'm of the mindset, just wait. Just hoard resources right now. I know that's not going to apply to everybody. I know that's not fun for everybody, for sure. But, you know, I wanted to tier 4 Gladiator, but then I was like, man, what if they drop like another native tier 2, tier 4? I'm going to be screwed for resources. I'm going to have to start buying packs. And I really don't want to buy packs. So, yeah, as much as I want a tier 4 Gladiator, and I apologize to all the people who want to see tier 4 Gladiator content, I'm kind of weary right now. And I really want to see what this game mode looks like. I want to see what the rewards look like. And I want to see how difficult it is, and if it really is going to force me to tier 4 anybody different, especially if it's going to force me to tier 4 a native tier 1, you know, like especially if it's going to force me to tier 4 Mystique, or force me to tier 4 like Sharon for DPS or something like that, then maybe I will, right? Maybe I will take advantage of the system, but I do want to see it first before I make any more choices, because I don't want to get left with my pants down. I don't want to get caught, you know, hanging out and then having to buy those god awful packs in the shop. If it was the anniversary, if it was like next month, if it was 30 days from now, then I would be more aggressive, because I know the anniversary has better tier 4 pack deals. But right now it's just all ass. It's terrible value right now. So yeah, hit me up in the comments down below. Let me know what you think of that. Thank you so much for watching. Smash the like button. It helps with the channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.